Welcome to Get Your House in Order. I'm Elke Rubach, and this podcast is about stepping into responsibility in money and life and your legacy, because freedom doesn't come from luck. It comes from structure and self ownership. And my guest today is Jeff Munn. He's an author, a coach, a reformed lawyer as well, a former corporate leader, and he turned into a purposeful architect of his life and lives that he coaches. He knows what it's like to live under performance or identity stress and chasing external validation. Now he helps people with figuring out a way to lean in, to be more real and lead full lives. We'll talk about money and identity and how you can't build real wealth if you haven't built yourself first. And yes, we'll talk about the noise and the cost of relying on external resources or rescues or not reaching out to people for help. But the idea today is that if you've ever felt stuck doing what's expected instead of what's true, this episode is for you. So, hi, Jeff. Thanks for being here. Well, thank you, Jeff, for joining me. I'm really looking forward to it because we have a lot of things in common. But let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Who is Jeff? You've spent years in law, you changed to financial services, then you chose a very different path. What cracked for you? What made you switch from performance into purpose?
Wow. We're going right in right away. It wasn't a sudden shift. It was something that was happening all along. So if we go way back to my being a stressed out overachiever law firm lawyer type, I was having panic attacks at the time. So this was early to mid 90s. And I had gone down this path of basically doing everything I was supposed to do or what I thought I was supposed to do to be happy. So I got good grades in school. I went to a great law school. I was like valedictorian of my high school class, like all the things, right? And all it did was make more stress for me. And I kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? And I ended up with panic attacks. I ended up with, no one talked about mental health at the time, but, I was going through my own serious kind of mental health crisis. And I was in Chicago in the mid 90s. Phil Jackson was coaching the Bulls and Michael Jordan. They were winning all their championships. And Phil Jackson started talking about meditation for his players. And I had this curiosity, or I had just come back from a trip to Thailand with my first wife. And I just started exploring this path. And I started meditating. My panic attacks went away. I started getting promotions at work because I was actually able to have a conversation with the person in front of me instead of just thinking about how to respond, right? And over time, I ended up getting into like spiritual teachers and getting exposed to something called coaching. And for a long time, I kept these things very separate from each other. Like I would go on these retreats and not say I was from the corporate world because I was embarrassed about that part of myself. And I would come back from the retreats and not tell my corporate buddies that I was on a retreat. One day I had a conversation with someone who they expressed some curiosity, and I told them, I kind of outed myself. I came out of the spiritual closet. And I discovered that at least for some small number of people, there was interest in having that conversation. And then the two timelines kind of converge. And I'll fast forward a lot of years. I, got laid off from my last corporate job with Fidelity Investments in Boston in 2016. And at that point, it was like the stars had aligned and I was ready to go out on my own as a coach and talk. And, today I work with founders, business owners on a lot of the same things that I think you do, especially on that, who am I? What do I do? Who do I want to be in the world?
Why
Now
am I
that,
doing this? Yeah.
yeah, why did I create this financial success for myself? What is it that I'm really trying to accomplish here? And I think that's where you and I overlap really nicely.
Yeah, and I'm also a reformed lawyer, so yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
noticed that in your background. I was like, "Hey, wait a minute. Was it an LLM I saw in your LinkedIn profile or something like that?"
yeah,
Yeah.
it's from London, and
Yeah.
yeah, but I think we walk the same path, and maybe you're dealing with people who've right already sold or are thinking about selling.
It can be all along that path. They come to me because at some point they realize they're either trying to create something and exhausting themselves in the process and wondering what they need to do to change to keep it going, or they're at that point where they've had the exit and they're surprisingly let down by the whole experience.
100%. And I always try to talk to people and say, "Oh, like, who are you if you're not the business owner? Who are you if you're not the lawyer? Who are you if you're not the?" And it's a very uncomfortable question for many because we're not used to making the time to ask
Yeah,
ourselves, or we don't have the time, or we think we don't have the time. But
right.
if we don't make the time, that's kind of tricky, right?
Yeah. How do you I struggle with this. My biggest challenge is getting people to slow down enough to ask those uncomfortable questions. Do you have any secret tips to get
Well,
them to or does it just have to happen on its own?
what I find is, as your story, it took a long time. So people
Yeah.
have, they will come at the time they're meant to be, and you can push as hard as you want. You cannot speed people up, or you cannot. You can share stories. You can say, "Listen, in my experience, this is what happened." But if they're not ready to have the conversation, like how many people talk about their business as this is my baby, this is my second child,
Mhm.
my the fifth child. The answer is no. Like the business is not your baby. It's your creation. Many years of work and reason of pride and suffering and everything that goes with
Right.
owning a business. But if you define yourself as your career or your business or so on, once that comes to an end, because it naturally comes to an end, there's a lot of confusion and fear and who are my friends and where do I really stand? So I literally just ask them the question, and sometimes I get good feedback, and they first say like nobody's ever asked me that question.
Mm.
Sometimes they're like, "Oh no, I'm gonna die working, and they're gonna carry me out of my office." And I'm like, "Okay, my job is not to convince people. I
Yeah.
just know, no, we all know, even they know
Mm.
that it's gonna come, and then it's up to them to act or not act. And then at the end of the day, it's consequences of not acting are on them too."
Yeah, and sometimes that turns into, a health challenge or a divorce or the kid's not talking to you anymore or whatever, right?
Yeah, and so I
Yeah,
think
that can be the wake-up
people.
call.
And you know what? Where I found that things sped up a lot after COVID,
Mm.
because the hour that you spent in traffic commuting, and potentially cursing traffic, was an hour that you could give to yourself and kind of think, what I like, what I not like, how should I change this? So kind of like I'm gonna call it mindful meditation, which is not safe for driving, but you know what I mean, right? Like you're forced
Yeah,
to be alone,
yeah.
or and some people listen to music and some people would just listen to podcasts and so on. But now after COVID, it's every half an hour there's a meeting, there's a decision fatigue, everybody's expected to answer quickly and so on. I find now in the last, call it, year or so, more or less people have been coming back to the office, but I'm finding, and I don't know if you do too, particularly women in their 50s and 60s,
Mm.
they do not see the day of light. They are used to the speed of delivery,
Mhm.
like the expectation of being there, being present at every meeting, at every point of the day, within 30 minutes, and changing flavors very quickly from meeting to meeting, and just delivering, 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 delivering while still attending to the family. And then you have the sandwich generation, aging parents. I
Sure.
I think the burnout is absolutely real, and I think COVID sped it up. I don't know if we know how to stop that train or slow that train, but,
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, that COVID was this at first, it was this slowdown,
yeah.
and then we adapted to it and made life even faster than it was before.
Okay.
It's like now you don't have to travel between meetings. You just flip from one Zoom meeting to the next Zoom meeting, and, maybe you get to pee at some point, but that's about it.
Or you've got all a minute and a half, or leave a message saying that I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, yeah. Be right back. BRB in the chat, right?
Yeah, no, and it's keep. But again, whether it's driving, not driving, COVID, not COVID, nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to come and rescue you. The same way I'm constantly advocating that the government is not going to come and do your financial plan and figure out your retirement, and you're not like some saint from who knows where is going to pop up one day and figure out who for you who you are. Like unless you like you owe it to yourself to sit
Yeah,
down, slow down, because nobody's going to do it for you.
right. And there are so many, things in our culture, in the mentality, just the things that founders in particular are told. It's, grind it, hustle, you know, y productivity, efficiency, get as much out of it. I mean, it really annoys me how much our society talks about speed, and if you've got an idea that requires speed, it's not a very good idea.
Well, remember your days as a lawyer. Remember the heroic stripes of I pulled 2 all-nighters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and how many hours every month, right? How many hours you bill last month, right? Yeah.
And that's the nature of the business, and that will never change. But what I'm finding with founders is, again, in the in 50s, 60s, is that we're squished between 2
Mhm.
generations. Our
Yeah.
parents said, "Go to school, go to work, find a job, keep it steady, grow the business, whatever it is, stay in your lane, discipline, don't fail, work hard, 3,000 hours a week, let's go."
Yeah.
And then the next generation 3 says, I mean, you certainly have been able to provide us kids with an incredible lifestyle, but we don't want that. And I might take over the business, maybe part of it,
Mm.
but I'm going to drop off my kids in school every morning.
Yeah.
And generation 1, like, you can see their eyes flipping sideways. It's such
Yeah.
real shock. They're like, "How are you expected to run this business if you're dropping your kids off at school?"
Yeah.
You talk about, performance mask. What is that? What's the mask we present to the world?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, to me, the question is how do you stop presenting that mask to the world? I mean, I'll give you an example. When I started my coaching business, I I kinda looked at it from a marketing perspective, right? My undergrad degree is in marketing, so I'm a lawyer with a marketing degree. Um, and I was thinking about, okay, well, what can I help people with? And, how do I show up as the person who looks like they can do that and they will hire me? And so it was all about how am I showing up? How am I, what kind of gloss, what kind of, shiny veneer do I put on the outside so that I look a particular way, that I come across in a particular way. Um, and what I found, and I think this gets to the point of your question, is that the more real I was with people about my flaws, my insecurities, my struggles, all of it, the better my business did. And I think ultimately we want to do business with human beings and we want to have like meaning because where else do we spend as much time as we do at work? If we're not getting meaningful interactions at work,
Mhm.
we're not going to be very happy people.
And how do you draw the line? Because obviously, like, I have no filters, right? I say things the way they are, and I always tell people I'm not the good news fairy. So if there's a problem, I'll tell you what's going on, and I'd rather raise an issue now that when you're 93 and have to find a job.
Yeah.
But I find that the performance mask, in addition to um, creating more confusion, it
Hmm.
also leaks into the financial blind spots of a family because like, it doesn't matter who I talk to. There's always one little piece that's missing that can make the house.
Oh, can you give me an example of that? That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, super successful business about to sell. Have you had the conversation with your children?
Yeah.
No. Have you ever told them the origin of your wealth? No, because there's embarrassment. There's and so those little pieces, the human side pieces of the story that we miss,
Right. Right.
um, that you're running fast, they create financial chaos. Why? Because maybe, I mean, the example of the kids who one wants to keep the business, like is there enough money to buy it out? Is there enough way, or are there enough ways to equalize the other kids if that's something that could happen? Do we need to train the next generation? Are you optimistic about taking the business over, but do you have what it takes? And do you even know what
Mhm.
it takes? And if people
Right.
haven't had those conversations with their kids, well, how are they supposed to know that? Another
Yeah.
example is I have everything in order. My asset portfolio is perfectly diversified. It's returning a ton of money. I'm tax efficient. I have all the financials in place, but I don't have an estate plan. And I haven't had
Mm.
the conversation with my spouse. And my spouse has absolutely no clue what's going on. Or my will is outdated. And I had a situation where one of my individuals that I was talking to, the spouse was the power of attorney for this person,
Mhm.
and the spouse had dementia. So if
Mm.
something had happened to this person too,
Wow.
I have 2 disabled people, non-competent people. How do we fix this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who in the right frame of mind will take that bull by the horns? Because that's very hard to sort out. So of course, legal fees go up, and it's not impossible. It's just not cheap to
Yeah.
fix. And so if people allow and are open to conversations and being humble, when we work with people, and we're not here to judge, we know that there will be a piece, and my job is to like literally poke to see if all the pieces are in place, and if
Yeah.
they are, wonderful. But there's a good chance, like 95% of the time, if not more, there's something missing. And
Yeah.
if you're open and humble and approachable enough to have the conversation, something really good comes out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that difficult conversation that you keep putting off. There's such gold in that, and there's such relief. Like, I have a tool that I use with people that I call Pick Now,
Mhm.
where it's like there's this thing that you already know you need to do, but you keep putting it off because it's gonna be hard or you're scared or you're not sure how it's gonna work out, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just like you just gotta pop that balloon. Like, you just have to take one action to start moving down that path, and then suddenly it gets so much easier, no matter how it works out. Right? You have these conversations where you learn about each other, you connect, you get closer. Doesn't matter if it's business or personal, the same kind of thing happens, that it's, like, almost this relief that floods over you. It's like, "Finally."
And do you find too that it's usually more complicated to have conversations within the family than talking about, I don't know, performance of the business or future the growth of the business? It's talking to
Most of the time, yes.
or the parents.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of times, I I mean, my clients tell me things they haven't talked about with their spouses. Like, we'll try something out. If there's something that's hard for them, a particular type of conversation or a particular type of, decision making, I'll say, "Would you like to try this out at work first or at home first?" And they almost always say, "At work,"
Yeah.
because it's easier.
Yeah, what's the expression of have to eat the frog or what
Yeah, eat that frog. Yeah, the Brian Tracy, wow, that's yeah. Yeah, do the hard thing first.
and the other thing I find too is once that conversation happens, they come back and say, "Well, it wasn't that hard."
No, it's never as hard as we think it's gonna be. And the great thing about it is once you start doing it, it gets easier and easier and easier. And suddenly, like, a month later, 3 months later, you wonder why it was ever hard in the first place. It totally shifts you.
And I think it's hard because you've never done it before, but you do
Right.
it once and it might be a little clumsy. The second time, it gets a little easier. The third time, it becomes natural.
Yeah.
Like anything in life, right?
Yeah.
And it just, I find, brings families closer when they do have those conversations,
Mhm.
good conversations, bad conversations, but when you don't have those conversations and figuring out who you are as an individual and what the reasoning behind the growth of your business, there's a
Mhm.
level of success where it's never about money. It's
No.
rarely about it. When there's absence of money, that's mostly the reason. But when there's
Mhm.
enough money and people get clear on how much money they actually have and how things work and how much they need and going on, like we do plans all the time for people, the conversations that need to happen are rarely about money.
Yeah, because how much you need is about math, but
Yeah.
you're not feeling math.
No.
You're
And
feeling all those stories that made you generate the money in the first place, and the lack and the sense of not being enough, or the sense of needing to prove yourself, and it's all this, like, childhood stuff that a lot of times we're not even conscious of that's driving us, and it's
right.
really hard to let go and transcend that.
And then people assume. People
Mm,
like, I assume that my kid wants this. I assume my parents want that. I assume. And
yeah,
if you have the conversation, well, you don't need to assume.
yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
and there are so many conversations that way we like to do things in a holistic way, and really that means looking at things from a 360-degree, working with other professionals. We deal with, estate lawyers and tax lawyers and tax planners and CPAs and coaches and counselors and asset managers and but people from all over the place. We like to have more eyes look at something because I might miss something. I'm human, right?
yeah,
And like I have experience dealing with family businesses and owners and founders and second generation, third generation. But maybe if one day I didn't sleep that well and I miss a point and somebody else can point it out. So to me, the message to people who are listening to this is don't try to do it alone, because if you could do it alone, you would have done it already. And the
yeah,
expression of it needs to, it takes a village is not a joke. Like, look at parenting.
yeah.
And before you get lost. So, where do you marry, or how do you help people marry authenticity with financial agency, with personal identity, with meaning of, their results or their achievements? How do you bring people, because I'm guessing not one conversation is similar.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're all different and they're all the same. I mean, different flavors of this same drive around, identity and feeling like they're not enough and feeling like they have something to prove, and I can, very much relate to that because that's my own story as well. Um, and getting at what do you really want? And asking that over and over again in different ways. And then also, every one of us is living in a simulation of the world that we're making up. We can't, as human beings, ever directly experience the outside world. We can only experience what our brains are telling us about the outside world. And that's filtered through our stories and our history and our culture and all this stuff, and we all do it a little bit differently. And we all create things about the world and ourselves that aren't true.
Right.
And so a lot of times, my role is just to reflect back. Oh, do you realize you have a rule that, I had this with an actual client. He's like, my name is on the door, so I have to be the first person in and the last person out. Like he had to be the first person there in the morning, last person to leave.
According to
And exactly, right? And the first step is to point out, that's something you made up. The next is to begin to experiment with that. Like, founders are shocked that their people actually like it when they're not there. It's like, "Oh, I get to make some of these decisions. I get to learn and grow. I get to develop as a leader. Maybe I wanna step into your shoes at some point someday. Maybe I wanna go off and start my own thing, but I will never get that chance if you are here, because you want to be there for me, you're actually getting in my way.
100%. And then you think you're super important, and then you reach the end of your career, and you're still super important in your head.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
we live in a world where we tend to outsource our identity, or or we're waiting for some miracle to happen, or waiting for rescue. We
Mhm.
hear, it's my employer's job, or it's my advisor's job, or the government. What breaks when people in your world, or based on your conversations, what breaks when people outsource the self, and how does that show in their lives, financial or otherwise?
The first thing that comes to mind is just a feeling of I'm not in control. I'm remembering a client who said to me when we started working together, he said, "I feel like the business is running me, not me running the business."
Uh-huh.
So I've lost agency. I have delegated, it's one thing to delegate unimportant decisions to other people. By all means do that. But there are some really critical decisions, like what do you want this business to be? Who do you want to be in this business? That only you can make. And you can do it with advice. You can do it with, maybe you want to join a peer group or something like that, where you're hearing from how other people have dealt with the same problem, but you've got to decide for yourself.
And nobody can drag you within your mind to get that to that point other than yourself.
Right.
So once they work with you, and oh, is it the same way? I know my version of my answer, but let me ask you the question. Once somebody's grounded in more authenticity, and what if they figure out their identity, what what are the first steps they take to align with their purpose?
I'm thinking about a conversation that I had with someone who's struggling with that right now. So it's a family business, and he kind of inherited the mantle. And his first instinct was to run the business into the ground.
Okay,
He didn't
like a
like the
Ted
business.
Lasso type of thing.
He he didn't like the business. He was kind of resentful. Like he had some stories around what the business had denied him. So, his dad in particular was always involved in the business. He never got time with his dad. Like it was like the business to him was everything bad about his life. And he instinctively wanted to like run it into the ground. And he did like he just abdicated for few years. He let other people make the decisions. And then he recently came back to the business. It was not doing particularly well. They had squandered their competitive advantage. They had people who were running it based on efficiency. And he realized, oh no, my journey here is actually to create this business as something I'm proud of and something that is more reflective of me and who I am and who I want to be in the world. I want to create this as people who I love to work with, customers who I love to work with. Like it can make money, that's fine, but let's do it in a way that feels good and joyful and fun. And that was a total shift for him. And he hasn't implemented all of it yet. He's still in the throes of like trying to undo what was done when he had abdicated. But yeah, just step by step. Oh, what feels more true to me? What feels more important to me? And beginning to make those decisions one at a time. It can feel really overwhelming, but when you start doing it one step at a time, it doesn't take as long as you think.
And in my world, I think the first thing we do is we take inventory of everything that there
Mhm.
is, right? And a little bit of like a Marie Kondo type of thing, of like, what do you have?
Right. And what
And
gives you joy? Like, pick it up, look at it. Does this bring me joy?
and it's interesting because as we go over different asset classes, or investments, or initiatives, or family conversations, or relationships, and so on, you can tell from their facial expression whether they like it or not, right?
Yeah.
But and to me, it just take really good notes, reflect the conversation back, and then help them let's make sure that you need what you have and you have what you need. Let's
Mm,
simplify. Let's clean that out noise, clutter, and that could be all sorts of clutter, like physical clutter to business clutter. People who have like
right.
36 and 50 and whatever number of corporations, and when you realize how many do you actually need, it was something like 10 or 12 or one
Yeah.
or two or
Yeah.
and there for no reason, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
just the idea of building a business that you enjoy. Like most people think of like, oh, it's this business and it's hard and it's a burden and it's a struggle. And then they create it as that very thing and they don't see it was their own perspective on what a business is that caused them to build the business that way.
or maybe they were trying to reflect the parents' teaching, or
Yeah. Yeah.
there.
Where did they get those rules in the first place? Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean, everyone's heard, I used to hear this from my dad, there's a reason they call it work. Like inherent in that is like work has to suck or you're not doing it right. Well, what does that do to us?
well, that's when you find a bureaucratic job and you just go and do your time and then you punch the clock and off you go. I mean, it's
Right.
it's it's a luxury to be a business owner, really. It's
Yeah.
hard and there are good days and there are days that you question your sanity, but then as long as you're surrounded by the right people, it kind of all it comes back, right? It's like
Right.
the heart chart. If it's
Right.
flat, you're dead. Right? So you need the ups and downs and just keep going and doing that. And something a conversation we have often with our clients when they have their transitions, like their family transitions,
Mm,
the generation one needs to be comfortable with handing over the reins.
yeah.
And that means or that includes saying, thank you, dad or mom, for building this. I'm taking over, but I'm taking over not in a stubborn or a childish way, but my vision is this and this is where we're headed.
Yeah.
Now, if generation one is not willing to do that, then you might as well sell the venture and give it up entirely. Like, we know that you're not going to be here forever. And how do you maximize the value of that venture? And if it's to keep it within the family, well, let's make sure that you're ready to let the reins go because otherwise, generation one tends to strangle generation two.
Yeah, totally. I've seen that a few times in my clients and an example of how to do it successfully, even though it was really hard. I'm thinking of a client where his dad ran a company that was basically him and a partner for years. And they worked, 60, 70 hours a week. It was just them. It because it was just them, they had 100% control, but it also stayed very small. And the son wanted to buy out the dad and convinced the dad to buy him out. And the dad retired from the business and actually stepped back. That was the really great thing that he did, even though it was hard for him. The son is 10x the business. He's brought in people, he's grown it, he's seen possibilities that the father saw, but he was never willing to take the risk. And now he sits and he's a proxy warrior for the son, but he's let him do it. And it's actually really deepened the relationship between the son and the dad because the son has the worrying too. He came to me and he was like, yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I'll personally, cause I see it come up, the curse of good enough.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, it's good enough. I don't want to risk it. And people don't see that they're strangling themselves when they do that.
But is it good enough in the eyes of your parents, or is it good enough in your own eyes? And I guess that's the eternal perennial, ongoing struggle, right? Is my business good enough that my parents would approve it? Or
Yeah, it depends on the person. In the case that I'm talking about, like anything the son did was going to exceed the father's expectations. Was going to worry the father, but like that wasn't the issue. The issue was the son was making more money than he ever thought he was going to make. And, materially, he had everything. Like if he had made a wish list as a kid, he had exceeded it. And at the same time, he was like trying to reconcile whether his urge to create was greed. Who was like, how could I be so selfish to want to like build this beyond what's necessary for me and my family?
To some kind of guilt?
Yeah, it was like success guilt, right? And instead, it was like, well, as we talked through, it's like, well, what's going to happen if you build? So you have this story that if you build it and you're successful beyond this certain point, it's going to take time away from your family. You're not going to see your kids. You're going to be stressed out. You're going to lose your health. And that's a possibility. But if we build this in the right way, you can actually be working less than you're working now. And the other was, what about the ecosystem that you're building up? What about the work that you're creating for, the people who come to work at your company? What about the purpose you're creating in them? Like, wouldn't it be selfish not to create that?
Now tell me, in this case, are there siblings?
He has one sibling who has never been involved in the business nor interested in the business. Yeah, I had another client who he had to fire his sibling. Like the dad ran the business and like put pressure on my client to hire the brother, and that was that was a mess.
That was not fun, unless you, off the bat don't like your sibling. I'm sure it was not a good conversation.
Oh, he kept him on way too long. He kept trying to find something that would work for him, and it was like, yeah, it was a really unhealthy dynamic.
So you coach people, uh, like, what I'm trying to get to is that, if people who listen to this podcast have something in common, is that we're trying to deliver everything to everyone,
Yeah.
and there's a point where you can't, if you could do it alone, you would have done it already. So you coach leaders, business owners, families to reflect on who they truly are.
Mhm.
Do you ever find resistance? Do you ever find, because I'm sure it
Oh,
comes around.
yeah. Yeah, and it can be conscious resistance, it can be unconscious resistance. 'Cause, yeah, we're living these scripts,
Yeah,
and a lot of the work is at least seeing that you're living the script, and then trying to figure out, "Is this the script that I actually want to live?" Because if you can see it, you can choose differently.
right.
So a lot of the initial work is, like, peeling back all the layers, like, what are the things you're thinking about the world and about yourself that are not actually true or that are optional?
Yeah. Well, when we start with, as I said, the inventory of what you are or what you have or don't have and what you use and what you don't need, etc. But we also have like a true financial plan, or
Mhm.
drafted for them. And that plays different roles. One is gives them reassurance that they're going to be fine. And if they're not going to be fine, well, I'll tell them, right?
Yeah.
But they open up the conversation. It's something that you can bring back the conversation to the paper. There's a plan that tells you there's a problem here. These opportunities
Mhm.
are there. Bring the family to the conversation. How are you going to split this? Or what
Yeah.
would you do if and it's not that you're talking about panic and crises, but what if,
Yeah.
like, plans exist in case things happen, right?
Right.
And it's not that you're planning out of panic, but you tell me what story you wanna tell people if you're not here to tell the story.
Yeah.
And we need to document it and do it properly and have lawyers involved, and 'cause it's not gonna be me who will tell the family, "Oh, yeah, he said that he thought that he wanted."
Mhm.
If you don't document it and have those conversations and slow down and figure out who you are, it gets tricky, right?
Do you
But,
do you find as you go through that process that over time people's values do change? Yeah. Like, how often do you revisit it?
well, we always tell people we wanna hear from you all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's, and it's not just bad news, we wanna hear the good news too, and when things change and, more family members or divorces or deaths or twins
Mhm.
or whatever happens, or the birth of a new business or all those things because we want to keep the plan. The plan is not necessarily a spending restriction chain for people.
Yeah.
It's really just a blueprint of if you want to go from A to B, how do you want to get there? Do you want to fly, walk, cycle,
Right.
skate? And then we adapt it, and plans are bound to change. And I don't know if values change. I think the order of priorities change.
Mhm.
And when I find people are at their darkest is when they either don't know their values or their values have shifted so much that they're completely conflicted by what's going on.
Mm. What would be
Those
something that would shift their values that dramatically?
when a friend dies, I find.
When a what?
When a friend dies.
Mm. Yeah.
uh, so when parents die, and it's kind of like the natural thing. Obviously, well, not when a parent is 40, but elderly parents, it kind of is the order. But when you're in your
Yeah.
50s, 60s, and your best friend dies,
Yeah.
there's a big shake, and like,
Right.
why am I
Like,
doing this?
how am I spending my time? What do I yeah. What if I only have 6 months left and I don't even know it, right? How would
Right.
what would I do differently?
And people stop and think like, are my relationships valid? And ranging from your friends
Mhm.
to spouses, children, how can I improve it? Or actually, this really doesn't work. Or how can we spend more time together? How can we have conversations? So I find that particularly when a friend dies, people stop and are like, whoa.
Mhm.
I, when a venture fails, there's sadness, there's stress, there are problems. But I find that that's a little less connected.
When one of the things that I find can be a huge upheaval is actually when the venture succeeds,
That
when it
too.
when it's
Now what?
sold, right? The exit. Like, I've been working my butt off for the last 20 years to get to this point, and I got there, and I thought I would feel like I, you know, ran through the finish line or whatever, this kind of victory dance, and maybe I felt that for a day or 2, and I saw the money in my bank account, and then, yeah, now what? Who
Yeah.
am I now?
And
No one
and
returns my phone calls anymore.
all those friends that used to.
I'm driving my spouse crazy because 'cause I'm around all the time, right?
I had a case where she was a super high achiever, high powered lawyer, and of course she had a massive say on who got whose contract and how and where and what.
Mhm,
And as soon as she retired, the calls stopped coming in, right? She wasn't as attractive to many people, which is
yeah,
sad, but you need to be prepared and always keep your feet on the ground because that's that's how it is. But and the other thing she said is like, you know what? I used to hang out with these people, not hang out. Like I would go for lunch with these people once or twice a year, and it was fine. And it was lovely to catch up with them, and it was great to know that. But now that I'm retired, they wanna play tennis every single day. I don't even like these people.
yeah.
So who are your friends? And I always say, it's better to start thinking about all these questions that really only affect you in the future before you have to decide in a whim.
Yeah,
How
well, and it's interesting too because I've been in these conversations with people where I will, and I'm sure you've had a version of this too, where you try to warn them what's coming, but you really can't because they actually have to like, they'll get it intellectually. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I
Uh,
know, I know, I
but
know.
then when it happens, it's like, "Oh, yeah, you're right."
But, that's how we started, right? It's,
Yeah,
when it's their time. You can
right. When does the light
show
bulb
them,
go
map
off?
it out, chain
Yeah,
them to the wall, and put, like, a video of things that happen and example. If they're
yeah.
not ready to listen,
Yeah, it's kinda like with your kids, right?
yep, well, you're
Yeah,
gonna fall, you're gonna fail.
yeah. "Have
Okay.
you thought this through?" Yeah. Yeah,
And
especially when you have teenagers, which yeah, I have
yeah,
one right now.
there's a good chance that later on they will think it through whenever their turn is, and they're going to outsmart you or beat you. Like you hope that for your kids, right? That they
Yeah.
do better than you, whatever better means to them, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a 16-year-old and, he, he's so much better at some stuff than I was at his age. It amazes me. I was like, "Oh, man, good on you." And it'll be interesting to see where he takes it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. To people waiting for systemic fixes or some miracle that will kind of like lift them and teleport them to the chair of decisions and thinking because it doesn't happen magically. What would you say if I told them that the only rescue is inside of them? How do you make them wake up
Mm.
as a coach?
A lot of times, by the time they get to me, they're already a little curious about waking up.
Mhm.
So if I'm starting from 0, I don't get anywhere. I mean, it's exactly what you said, right? They have to kinda live to that point, and maybe they will get there and maybe they won't. Maybe everything will be fine. We don't know, right?
Yeah.
But if they are getting to that point, I find tiny nudges, little experiments, things that don't overwhelm the system a lot more effective than, "Oh my gosh, you've you know, this is a disaster. You've done it all wrong. It's like, no. It's like just you need to show them things a little bit at a time in a way that they can see it, so you're not telling them. You're asking a question and they're looking at it and they're seeing it. If they can see it for themselves, then it's easy to take action.
So a soft intro to the hard topic.
Well, yeah, or yeah, the having their own insight
So
is the way forward.
so Jeff, I think you would really do a lot of good to many people listening to us.
Mm.
Obviously we'll have your contact information, everything added. Let me put you through a lightning round. Ready?
Oh, okay, you didn't warn me about this, but yeah, let's go.
Well,
Yeah,
because I want like we want it to be a conversation.
yeah,
It's not, I always say it's not rocket science. It's a conversation, human to human, and let's see what people pick up.
yeah,
And
yeah, I love stuff like this. Let's go for it. Yeah,
some people will hear something, and if they hear this thing again, they'll hear something else. You always pick up a different thing the second
mhm,
time you listen to things, right?
yeah,
So buckle up.
okay.
What is one identity shift you've refused to regress from?
I've refused to regress from. I live my life with the goal of fully expressing myself,
Mhm.
not of making other people happy or making myself look in a particular way or fitting myself in a particular box. It's taken me a long time to get there, and now I am not going back because I've seen how rewarding it is on all levels if I just keep doing that, keep peeling back the layers.
Okay. A book or practice you still return to?
A book that I recommend to everyone who's, thinking about working with me is a book that I may not I well, I still return to the book, but I return to the book's ideas all the time. It's a book from a coach of mine named Michael Neal. It's called The Inside Out Revolution.
Okay. A mistake you made early on that you now see as a gift?
Oh. I married my first wife. I married someone based on who I thought checked the boxes on would be on being a good match rather than, being true to what my heart felt.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and well, that's awesome. Thank you so
Every
much.
one of these is a new podcast episode, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
could go for days on that one.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good one. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, this is what Jeff and I want you to know and hold. If you haven't built yourself, you can't build anything sustainable. not your money, not your business, not your relationships. And they all reflect who you are beneath the mask. And you
Yeah.
cannot trick yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, can I say it a little bit differently? It's exactly the same thing, but I would say yourself isn't a construction project, it's an excavation project.
100%. So we should
Yeah, like
begin or
removing the
continue.
masks and the layers and the, "Oh, wait, I really want this. I really want." Like, I was doing I did a session with a group of exited founders, and we were talking about purpose, and to me, purpose is really about freedom, and most people think about freedom as, like, freedom from, like, I no longer have to worry about working again, I no longer have to worry about finances, but to me, it's like freedom to. Like
Yes.
freedom to say what's really on your mind, what's really in your heart, freedom to create what you wanna create, not what other people expect you to create, freedom to just, like, be your true authentic self, like, I think that's what we all want, and I love what you're up to, and I love that we've been able to be in this conversation together.
So, well, me too. I think we're on the same path. So let's
Yeah,
just continue. And
yeah,
I think it's not even advice. I think it's the suggestion we
mhm,
we we want to give people listening to the podcast is you have to be ready, or at least begin the work or continue the inside work this week.
yeah, yeah,
And take one little step and make sure that you're aligned with yourself.
yeah,
If you're scared of criticism and judgment, rest assured there will always be judgment and criticism. But ultimately, people don't care.
right, and that fear is a great guide. Like, whatever you're afraid of, that's probably where your next work is.
Exactly. So you need to take one step towards
Yeah,
agency.
yeah,
So we want listeners to literally stop, think, reflect, reach out. You're not alone. Share this episode with someone you might have had the conversation or something along the lines that are, people that might be hiding in performance, and let the work begin. It's human. It's intentional, and it's seriously much better for everyone, and particularly your family when you live when with alignment and intention.
yeah,
Uh, Jeff, thank you so, so much. I hope we can have this conversation again in the future about something similar or more great stories.
yeah,
And thanks for being here.
yeah, thank you for having me, I really love the conversation, Elke.
Me too. I'm Elke Rubach. This is Get Your House in Order. And until next time, build your structure from the inside out. Thanks, everyone.